What's good, YouTube? It's Butter and this joint, man. Today, y'all, I'm back with another reaction, man. Today, y'all, we got, the Mexican Mafia and how it's over taking over Texas, bro. But yeah, we about to see what they talk about in this joint, bro. You mean? But yeah, bro, if you're new to the channel, make sure you comment, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Stay tuned for more, bro. And it's a lengthy vid, bro, so I got mines, bro. You mean? I would advise y'all to pause the vid and go get y'all's, or just do it at the same time. Let's get it, though.
Welcome back to the 100th episode of Swamp Stories. I thought I'd be here a long time ago, but I've gotten pretty lazy. But thanks to the day one subscribers up until now, the channel will keep going up. Well, for this special video, we dive into probably the most important topic in California.
Bro, like, this pizza look crazy right now, gang. Like, if y'all ain't just see when I showed it, bro, I gotta show y'all again, cause like, bro, they just really went crazy, bro. Tell me this pizza don't look legendary, bro. Woo! It's a mythical piece.
Underground history. Just like the history of countries fighting and colonization is taught in school, I find that these sort of topics are equally as important to learn. And for that reason, I'm covering this topic from the very start to the end without missing a detail. Okay, I'm definitely gonna miss some details, but you guys would say that they're all wrong anyways, so it really doesn't matter. Either way, this is a really good video, so let's dive right in. The east side of Los Angeles is historically the hard-working blue-collar part of town. In the 1900s, it was home to Jewish, Armenian, and Chinese families who came over with nothing and worked hard for stability. And after a couple of decades, the Armenians moved to Glendale, the Chinese moved to the SGV, and the Jewish community moved to Fairfax. Coincidentally, during this same time, Mexican immigrants began flooding into the area. In fact, by 1935, East LA was over 90% Mexican, and this
Mexican immigrants. How? Mexicans been living there.
Where the Chicano culture was truly birthed. However, life was not so easy for Mexican immigrants as they faced prejudice and were denied many opportunities. And partly due to this, gangs started to form with the local youth. It started off with small cliques like White Fence, Big Hazard, and Maravilla, who represented their small blocks or projects. At first, they started for unity and protection, and this would be put to the test in 1943. It's the height of World War II and most American men are overseas in the battle. In LA, tensions are high because a lot of the local families feel like the Mexican immigrants are dodging the war. Because of this silly assumption, anytime they leave the East LA area, they're harassed with negative comments. And eventually, there's only so much they can take. June 3rd, 1940.
So they mad they there, but now they mad they ain't trying to slide for them. Bro, y'all gotta pick a side.
A group of immigrant workers are waiting at a bus stop on Main Street in downtown LA. While waiting for the bus, a crew of Navy sailors surround them and begin taunting them and calling them disrespectful names. The workers are fed up with this treatment and they do the unthinkable. They throw hands with the sailors and it turns into a major brawl. By all accounts, the immigrants beat them badly. Nothing like this had ever happened before, especially not against some naval officers.
Dang.
As you would expect, the Navy sailors are pissed, but instead of snitching, they decide to get revenge. So the next day, 200 of them armed with bats take buses to East LA. When they arrive in their turf, they run around intimidating any young man they see. When the neighborhood cliques get word of this, they run outside looking to confront them. This turns into 5 straight days of fighting, the Navy officers versus East LA immigrants.
Yo.
Thankfully, everyone made it, but this was truly a stain on Los Angeles history. The news and politicians instantly took the side of the sailors and scapegoated the entire East LA. Because of this, they were labeled as Los Angeles' worst neighborhood and were denied all kinds of opportunities. Businesses left the area and no one would ever visit. As you would expect in a situation like this, the area began to fall apart. The local gangs got more serious and what used to end in squabbles was now ending in body bags. Sadly, the environment was starting to create some dangerous young men. And that introduces us to Joe Morgan, one of the most reputed Maravilla members. As you can tell by his name, Joe isn't Hispanic. In fact, he's from a Croatian family that just so happened to live in East LA. Growing up, Joe was the only one of his kind, so he went extra hard to prove his worth. This forced him to be extremely rough, even to the point where he joined the local Ford Maravilla at just 15. His gang nickname was Peg Leg due to his prosthetic leg, but his disability didn't hinder him at all. And
he was still sliding with a peg leg?
He was known to get all of the beautiful women in East LA. Now listen to this. As a senior in high school, Joe was dating a 32-year-old married woman in Boyle Heights. Essentially, Joe Morgan was her side piece, but she had him convinced that he was her lover for life. And because of this,
Joe a real deal hooper though.
Kept telling her to leave her husband and to marry him.
No.
Sharp is somewhere shaking his head, but Joe Morgan was young and in love. The woman finally tells him that she's not leaving her husband, and Joe is furious.
Is he crazy?
Sadly, he thinks that there's only one solution left. In August of 1946, Joe beat her 35-year-old husband with a bat and buried him in his own backyard.
Bro, it should never get to this point. You this tender, bro.
After doing this heinous act, he strangely thought that she would now want to marry him. So he went and told her what he did, expecting a happy response.
Dummy?
But instead, she was devastated and ran straight to the police. Joe was quickly arrested and made headlines all over the state. He assumed that he was getting life no matter what, so he decided to come up with a plan. Joe's cellmate had a small charge and was being released very soon. And at the time, inmates were given a piece of paper with their release date on it, and that's all they needed to leave the jail. So during the night before his cellmate's release date, Joe switched out their papers and left early in the morning.
Bro, the crime was so easy back then, but now soon, it's gonna be hard to do a lot of crimes, bro. When they change everything to cryptocurrency and all this AI stuff and all these cameras, bro, do y'all notice on every highway and every street y'all go on, it's a camera? Bro, them folks is watching you on that road, watching you when you get some gas, all that, bro.
This was a genius move, but the next one not so much. Instead of going into hiding, Joe went right back to his hood in East LA. Why he did this? Well, maybe he wanted to go back to his hood, or maybe he wanted to see his lover. This wouldn't last long as Joe was rearrested and sent right back to county jail. He ended up pleading guilty and getting 9 years in San Quentin.
This man got out and got 9 years. Bro, what? We just learned about San Quentin, but no way he really just did that dumb stuff, bro. I'm shaking my head.
Pleading guilty and getting 9 years in San Quentin. Joe was now a hated man and an infamous character in the LA streets. But for now, we'll leave him alone, as we'll come back to him later in the story. Both the youth inmate population was growing fast, and the state only had one facility to house them. This would be the DVI Youth Authority in Tracy, California. Here is where resided hundreds of youth offenders from Vallejo down to San Diego.
Dang, they youth jail, that's a real jail.
For a wild environment. Because there were no gangs, the yard was pretty much controlled by the biggest guys. And by 1957, the yard was controlled by a crew of big old dudes from Oakland. These guys essentially tossed everyone around and extorted them at their will. Eventually, enough was enough, and a crew of 13 teenagers got together to stand up against the Oakland bullies. The teens were all Mexicans from Southern California and happened to be the smallest guys on the yard. They decided to call themselves the Mexican Mafia, also known as La M. Their main purpose was to have each other's back against the bullies and have a feared presence in DVI. At first, their formation really didn't do much, but then a new member would hit.
See, if y'all watched that documentary I did on the Aryan Brotherhood, they mentioned them, and they was going to war with some niggas and stuff like that. Well, I'm gonna let him explain the rest of the story though, but if you didn't watch that, go watch that too, and you'll find out a little bit more about this.
And change everything. That introduces us to a teenager named Rodolfo Cadena, also known as Cheyenne. Cheyenne grew up in the hot, disgusting, nasty town of Bakersfield and was known in the area as a bully. Just like Joe Morgan, Cheyenne was sentenced for claiming a man's life over a girl he wanted. So within Bakersfield, he was known as a man that nobody should mess with. It's 1961 and Cheyenne walks onto the DVI yard for the first time. This is when he's approached by a 6'6" giant originally from Shreveport, Louisiana. The giant picks him up, kisses him on the cheek, and tells him that he now has to follow his orders.
Oh, heck nah, bruh. Oh, no.
The guy is so intimidating that most would just fall in line, but Cheyenne is not going for
gotta
this.
fight back.
So that night, he goes to his cell, makes a shank, and thinks about what he's gonna do. The next day, the bully was found in the middle of the yard. Everyone witnessed Cheyenne do this, but now they were so scared of him that nobody told. Instead, all it did was make the Mexican Mafia want to recruit him. So after approaching him, Cheyenne decided to officially become a Mexican Mafia member. Cheyenne instantly turned up everything in the facility and quickly became the Mexican Mafia leader. He started fights and riots in the facility, which eventually got the attention of the warden. When he learned about the Mexican Mafia, he was pissed and he wanted to teach them a lesson. He decided to send the Mexican Mafia teenagers to San Quentin, hoping that the big boys would scare them out of their gang. So led by Cheyenne, 15 Mexican Mafia teenagers were thrown into California's most dangerous prison. This was supposed to dismantle their gang, but it actually did the opposite. In fact, the Mexican Mafia used this as an opportunity to recruit. San Quentin's Mexican inmates loved the idea of unity and many of them wanted to join. So day by day, new members joined La M. The warden's plan backfired. Just like that, the Mexican Mafia was growing fast.
Dang.
Well, coincidentally, during this time, Joe Morgan was arrested and sent back to San Quentin. During his previous prison stint, he was always clicked up with his boys from East LA. But as you know, this time around the landscape was completely different. Of course, Joe wanted to be with his boys, but was a white boy even allowed to run with the Mexican Mafia? He decided to check with his fellow white inmates and they all told him to go ahead. On top of this, Cheyenne heard about his reputation and was eager for him to join. And just like that, Joe Morgan became a Mexican Mafia member. Joe and Cheyenne became the best of friends and they both wanted the same thing for the Mafia. They wanted to make it dominant and grow it as big as they could. And in order to do this, they needed to implement codes of conduct and strict lines of command. So together they made a rule book. The first rule they established was blood in, blood out, meaning that once you join, you're stuck for life. The second, of course, is no snitching, and the third is no cowardice. Another one is that members have to keep the Mafia ahead of God and their family. On top of this, members must follow the strict chains of command.
Dang.
You must listen to your superiors and never question them or raise a hand. Any violations of these codes would result in serious consequences, including death. Essentially, they wanted the Mexican Mafia to replace the religion in your life. Joining the Mexican Mafia was not meant to be a gimmick.
Yeah, it ain't. They for real.
With
they program overly strict, but they was putting belt though.
Kind of structure, the Mexican Mafia became a serious force in San Quentin. They became the bullies on the yard, extorting anyone who wasn't a member. And as a result, the Mexican inmates who didn't join decided to create their own gang as a resistance. This would be called La Nuestra Familia, also known as NF. They consisted of mostly Northern California Chicanos who were outnumbered more than 3-1. Regardless, they quickly became a serious force on the yard as well. And right off the bat, the Mexican Mafia and NF were bitter rivals. It got so bad that everyone else in San Quentin had to choose a side. Because of their close relationship with Joe Morgan, the Aryan Brotherhood decided to rock with the Mexican Mafia. This essentially forced the Aryan Brotherhood's rivals to join with the NF. So by 1966, San Quentin was divided in two halves.
So some niggas and some Mexicans versus some white boys and some Mexicans.
BGF and NF versus La M and AB. As you would expect, things got hectic behind bars. Riots were constantly breaking out and the guards were losing control over San Quentin.
I just did this piece of North, y'all.
Something needed to be done and the warden came up with a plan. When the warden found out that Cheyenne was calling shots for the Mafia, he decided to transfer him to Chino prison. The idea was that this way he could no longer directly communicate with his gang and San Quentin would become safer. The move was made in 1970 and Cheyenne walked into a new facility where he was not protected. On top of this, Chino was home to the Nuestra Familia leader Joe Gonzalez, a man who hated La M with all his guts. Cheyenne quickly realized he was outnumbered and decided to try his best option for survival. He rallied to stop the beef and to make peace with BGF and NF.
Oh, he tried to cop, please.
By 1971, he had made
when his back was against the wall, but let's see if they go for that, y'all.
Peace with BGF's leader George Jackson and was close to making a truce with NF. As a co-leader of the Mexican Mafia, Cheyenne was making all kinds of progress by himself. And by the fall of 1972, Cheyenne and Joe Gonzalez had set a date for an official truce. This was a groundbreaking move for California, and the date was set for December 14th. There was only one barrier in the way of the truce. Joe Morgan was furious at Cheyenne as he thought that he was turning soft. Because of this, he told Mexican Mafia members to no longer follow his commands. Being that they're both leaders, this made things pretty complicated. Some members were following Cheyenne and others were following Morgan. Either way, Morgan wanted to prove that he's the real boss. December 12th, 1972. It's 2 days before the meeting and Joe Morgan is scrambling to make sure it doesn't happen. So he calls up one of his loyal members in Chino and gives him an order. He tells him that before the meeting he needs to eliminate 2 NF members of his choice. The member is happy to do it, so he walks to his cell and makes a shank. He then walks to the prison's guidance center where he knows he can find an NF member off guard. So at 11 a.m. he walks in the center and spots 2 random NF members. Sadly, he completes the order.
Shoot.
The incident shocked everyone. No way this happened after all this progress and 2 days before the truce. As you would expect, Joe Gonzalez was furious and confused. Has Cheyenne been playing me this whole time? Did he call for this truce just to make us off guard and then do this? Joe obviously called off the truce and Cheyenne was now his enemy number 1. Cheyenne was completely numb. He couldn't believe what his best friend Morgan had done to him.
It's over.
You called a shot behind my back, and now I'm a target of the rivals. Everyone knew his days were numbered, and the prison even offered him protective custody. But Cheyenne refused and simply accepted his fate.
Oh, snap.
Just 4 days later, he was discovered outside of his cell.
Bro, they ain't
Cheyenne
playing.
was just 2 days away from saving hundreds of future lives. But all of that was now out of the window and the beef was right back on. Even though he probably caused it, Morgan used Cheyenne's death.
See, bro? It's always just the one with the biggest head, Latoya Luggett, man. Oh, he's calling me, man.
And the beef was right back on. Even though he probably caused it, Morgan used Cheyenne's death as a reason to turn up against NF. He green-lighted all NF members, which essentially turned San Quentin into a Call of Duty gulag. Every day brought new action and the facility was completely out of control. A bunch of Mexican Mafia members were on the attack, but one stood out more than any other. That introduces us to a man named Mundo Mendoza, also known as Mundo. Mundo was raised in East LA's Estrada courts and was known growing up as a goody two-shoes.
So it sounds like the east side really the trenches, bro. So is east side where all the Mexican gangs at, or is like Mexican gangs all around the city?
Despite being from a gang-infested hood, he did well in school, played sports, and was an altar boy at church. By all accounts, he was polite and truly destined for a positive life. However, life wasn't so good at home during his teenage years as his mom's new boyfriend treated him badly. Mundo recalls awful treatment by his stepdad, which led to a complete change in his personality. He became angry and defiant towards authority, a switch up that nobody expected. So at the age of 14, he made the bold decision to run away from home. Kind of. He actually remained in the Estrada courts, but he just found a new family with their local gang. The gang is called VNE, one of the most dangerous in Los Angeles at the time. So at 15 years old, he was officially jumped onto VNE with all kinds of anger and pain to get off his chest. On top of this, he wanted to shake the reputation as a goody two-shoes. Well, Mundo's first test would come at 17 years old, December of 1969. It's a regular day in the hood and Mundo gets word from his sister that their childhood friend is at a rec center just a couple blocks away. The friend's name is David and he happens to be in rival VNE territory. Somehow Mundo forgets this and decides to walk into rival territory looking for his friend. When he arrives in the rec center, the rivals instantly recognize him and decide to jump him. At this point, Mundo assumes his life is over as the rivals have no plans of stopping. But then out of
Bruh, they hoods is that close? That really be crazy, bro. Like, beef with somebody on the opposite side of the street of you, bro.
nowhere, a girl starts screaming stop, he knows David. So the white fence members stop beating him and they apologize and let him go. Regardless that they let him go, Mundo is pissed. So later that night, he returns to the rec center with a machete. And there,
bro, what did I just tell y'all in that, bro, I don't even know what video that was, bro. But I was telling you I was traumatized to go to LA because of this, bro.
Mundo was pissed. So later that night, he returns to the rec center with a machete, and there he sadly claims the life of one of his rivals.
Michael Myers timing.
Because of this, the former altar boy was now on his way to San Quentin. After entering San Quentin in 1971, decided to become a Mexican mafia member. At this point, he was completely cold-hearted and went to prison like a kid at a candy store. He instantly stood out to Joe Morgan as the most aggressive member on the yard, and after the passing of Cheyenne, Morgan had him doing most of his hits on the yard. Now listen to this. By 1974, Mundo had claimed 6 NF lives on the yard, and that...
Oh, he was out there hooping. Bro. This jail stuff get ripped. Bro, I would never go to jail in Cali, gang. Never. Hell no.
NF lives on the yard, and that's according to him. However, no witnesses ever came forward, and none of these were ever solved. All it did was elevate his status, and Joe Morgan appointed him as a Mexican mafia leader.
How you get caught for a murder outside of jail, but you don't get caught for 6 while you're in there? How is that possible, bro?
Mundo and Morgan at the helm was really bad news for the rivals, and it got even worse when they hit the streets. It's 1975, and Joe Morgan and Mundo are both released from San Quentin. Together, they decide to bring the Mexican mafia to the streets of LA, and here's how they do it.
It's over.
Joe Morgan had a master plan on taking over the drug market of Southern California. To do this, he would approach dealers on the streets, tell them who he is, and then offer them a deal. You either start selling our product, or we tax you 10% for everything you sell. Well, this really wasn't an offer, instead just simple extortion. So the dealers who feared Joe Morgan complied, and those who didn't had to meet Mundo. Yes, by all accounts, denying Joe Morgan's extortion resulted in a Mundo hit. This duo was scary and wreaked absolute havoc on the streets of LA. Here's the scariest part. Mundo says that he had no remorse and saw it as just business. This guy was cold, and in just 2 years, Mundo and Morgan completely took over the market. In order to...
They took down everybody. Get down or lay down. Hold on, y'all. See, they acting crazy. Oops.
And in just 2 years, Mundo and Morgan completely took over the market. In order to protect the trade, Mexican mafia hoods began establishing as well. This aggressive approach brought a ton of revenue to the mafia, which extended their power even more. That's why it's safe to say that Mundo and Morgan were California's most powerful criminals, but it wouldn't last for long. In 1977, Joe Morgan was arrested for felon in possession of a firearm. This was his 3rd strike, so instead of going to trial, he decided to go on the run.
What's that? 3rd strike? Damn me.
Now that Morgan went into hiding, Southern California was Mundo's playground. In 1978, Mundo took a trip to the nasty, disgusting city of Bakersfield looking for an NF leader who was just paroled. According to Mundo, he pulled up to his house and eliminated him and another NF associate. He describes it as business as usual.
Mundo is a demon, bro. Mundo probably up 20.
Says that the only thing on his mind was making it on time for the Dodgers game to watch the batting practice. He says that at the game he laughed with his mafia associates about what he had just done. Little did he know he had left evidence at the scene. Just days later, a warrant was issued for his arrest and he was extradited to Kern County Jail. If you know anything about Kern County, it's the Texas of California, meaning that if you're arrested, you're definitely not beating the case. But Mundo says that he didn't even care because prison is where he lived his most thrilling life. He thought this was just business as usual, but this time around, things were a little different. For the first time ever, Mundo started to feel thoughts of remorse and empathy. He started waking up at night tormented by what he had done. After a short while, he could no longer handle it and needed someone to talk to. So one morning, he approached an 84-year-old inmate named Nathaniel Elridge. He knew Nathaniel was religious and he wanted to learn from him. So he told him everything he had done and got it all off his chest. Nathaniel then prayed for him and brought him a Bible. Mundo then told him, "I'm a ruthless animal, I don't deserve your prayers." That's when Nathaniel taught him about forgiveness and that Jesus can forgive anyone. So a month later, Mundo took it upon himself to finally pray and to ask for forgiveness. He cried in his cell and describes it as something evil leaving his body. Something clicked in his head, and he no longer wanted to live the life of a Mexican mafia member. As you know, he's never allowed to leave, and it's only punishable by death. On top of this, he remembered what Morgan had done to Cheyenne when he deviated from the script. Mundo had some serious things to consider. Well, fast forward a few months and it's time for Mundo's trial. Due to a court technicality, his case was dropped and all he had to do was finish his parole. This was a 1 in a million chance, and Mundo was truly California's boogeyman. No matter what he ever did, he always seemed to prevail. But internally, after beating the case, he still wasn't happy. He couldn't live with himself and he felt the urge to make a change. So he decides that when he's released, he's gonna snitch and take down the Mexican mafia.
What?
In the meantime, he goes to the prison counselor and asks for a meeting with the DEA. The counselor laughs at his request, assuming that it has to be a joke. But Mundo is dead serious and tells her to do it. So she calls the head of the DEA and he tells Mundo that he'll meet him when he's released.
Bro, I am disgusted. You could have just skipped states, bro. Why did you have to tell? Why?
So Mundo's released and he walks to the Greyhound station waiting for the bus to LA. While sitting there, he hears a honk, looks up, and right there is the head of the DEA. Mundo's face lights up and he walks to the car. As you can imagine, the head of the DEA is beyond confused. You just beat a life sentence. Why do you want to talk to authorities? On top of this, even being seen talking to law enforcement can get you whacked. He directly asks Mundo, "Why does the head of the Mexican mafia want to talk to me?" Mundo responds with a chilling answer. "I want to put people away who do what I used to do."
So he beat life, and then still proceeds to tell.
The DEA is like, "Cool, hop in and I'll drive you home to LA. But Mundo only has one request: leave my brother-in-law Eddie Sailor Boy Gonzalez out of this. The investigator agrees and Mundo hops in the car. During the 2-hour drive, Mundo tells him everything. First, he tells him where California's most wanted man is hiding. This would be Mexican mafia enforcer Alfie Sosa, a man on the run for 6 homicides in LA. He tells him that he's hiding at a relative's house in Tijuana and that he can help find him. This was already massive, but Mundo would take it even farther. He tells him that Joe Morgan is living out of a camper in Oregon's National Park. His former best friend, mentor, and running mate in the streets. This now meant nothing to Mundo as he wanted
Bro, watch everybody.
bad people gone. Well, Mundo is dropped off at home and the DEA tells him that they'll be in contact shortly. So a couple days later, Mundo gets a call and goes down to the DEA office. When he walks in, right there is his brother-in-law, Eddie Sailor Boy Gonzalez. What is going on? Did the DEA just betray my one request? No, because Mundo quickly finds out that Sailor Boy became an informant at the exact same time. So essentially, this was them at the DEA office.
Like, damn, you're a rat too?
So together, they help the government locate Alfie Sosa and Joe Morgan. So Mundo calls up each of them and says he wants to come visit. Even though it's a risk, they give him their location. So first, Morgan drives down to Tijuana with the DEA following him. Once they get Alfie's location, they wait a couple of months to arrest him. This way, he doesn't suspect that Mundo informed on him. And they did the same exact strategy for Joe Morgan as well. Over the next year, Alfie Sosa and Joe Morgan were both raided and sent to prison.
If they got word that both of them went to jail, well, no, the mafia gonna know. But yeah, they definitely gonna know that he ratted. They definitely gonna know.
Here's the craziest part, listen to this. After taking down Alfie and Morgan, Mundo went right back to his life in the streets. No one knew that he snitched, and for whatever reason, he thought that he had done his job. So now I'm thinking about why he would have done this. If you truly wanted to take bad people off the streets, why wouldn't you just start with yourself and turn yourself in? Regardless, Mundo wouldn't be exposed.
I'm sorry I keep pausing, bro. This is the worst breed of street nigga to exist, bro. He catching hats and he telling, but he not just telling on the ops, he telling on his homies though. Like, what, bro?
A snitch until many years down the line. In the meantime, sending Joe Morgan to prison didn't stop anything he was doing. Morgan became a major shot caller once again. In fact, in the 80s, he was arguably worse than he was in the 70s. The Mafia was so bad that California even opened a new prison to try to stop them. Yes, in 1988, Pelican Bay was built in order to stop communication from high-ranking members.
Pelican Bay has two separate facilities. One side is for inmates classified as maximum security, or level 4, but who can be housed in a general population setting. The other half is a security housing unit, also known as SHU. Inmates are sent here because of their behavior once in prison. Some are here for prison gang activity. They live in cells that are arranged 8 to a unit, or a pod. Inmate activity is monitored by a correctional officer who can open cell doors electronically. All inmates are searched periodically for weapons. All clothing, bedding, and personal effects are x-rayed. Cell construction also is designed to curb assaults. Instead of metal frames, bed supports are molded into the wall.
All of this to stop 4 major gangs, with La M being the most active. And at this time in California, stopping gangs was priority number 1. Because of this, many people were curious to know what's really going on. Thus why a famous film director decided to seize the opportunity. A famous East LA film director named Edward Olmos wanted to make a movie about Cheyenne and Joe Morgan. In order to present an authentic story, he hired local OG gang members who still resided in the area. He gave them an opportunity to be on set and to make critical judgments on scenes. To me, this is awesome, but one person was not thrilled. When Joe Morgan heard about the film, he was furious and sent threats to everyone. One of the threats was sent to his former friend in prison named Danny Trejo. He heard that Danny was offered a role in the film and that he may be helping out with production. Well, when Danny received the message from Joe, he instantly dropped out of the film.
Oh, I didn't know he was Mexican Mafia though. I remember boy used to be active in the movies.
It was an amazing career opportunity. He knew that crossing La M was not a good idea. However, everyone didn't think like Danny, and many of the candidates took the job. Well, the movie was released on March 13th, 1992. By many accounts, the movie is a masterpiece, and it amassed $13.1 million box office. Everyone involved was thrilled, as the movie did way better than expected. But little did they know Joe Morgan had made them enemy number 1. This was bad news. 2 weeks later, March 25th, 1992. OG Big Hazard member Charles Manriquez is hanging out on his turf, the Ramona Gardens. While sitting outside in the sun, a masked man walks up to Charles. Bang! This alarmed everyone who had helped out with the film, like, wow, this is actually serious. This was just the start. May 13th, 1992. It's an early Thursday.
That nigga Joe, bro, he is literally doing this, and they don't go every time.
Morning, and an East LA grandma named Anna Lizagara is loading up her car to drive to Utah.
Not Granny.
Anna was a key helper in the film, but figured she had nothing wrong. Joe Morgan felt otherwise. While loading her car, a masked man walks behind her. This was a disgusting, cold-hearted move by Joe Morgan, and now I understand why Mundo did what he did, but the casualties from the movie do not end here. On August 7th, another helper from Big Hazard would be targeted as well. This was a respected OG named Manuel Rocky Luna, who was found in the Ramona Gardens. This was already 4 people gone from the film, but according
Bro, they getting them folks knocked off. They should listen to him.
Danny Trejo, the total was 10.
And from what I understand, some of the people featured in that movie, like I think like got killed because of them being in that movie.
4 out here and about, I think 6 in prison.
Joe Morgan was not playing, and he even wanted the film director Edward Olmos.
So from what I heard, there was a price on Edward James Olmos' head over that. That's true.
Yeah. So he refused to see me. He wouldn't see me.
Edward James Olmos? Okay.
Because he thought that I was...
It was a setup.
Yeah.
As it turns out, Joe was really just upset with the way the movie depicted him. He included completely fictional, embarrassing scenes, even though Danny Trejo had warned him not to. So Morgan hated everyone involved with these scenes, except for the actors.
Because a lot of the actors came to me and ask Danny, are we in that? No, you guys aren't. You're worker bees.
Well, all of these hits resulted in a major beef between the Mexican Mafia and Big Hazard, but there's so much behind that it could get its own video. Well, in the midst of the American Me drama, the Mexican Mafia would receive tragic news. On November 8th, 1993, Joe Morgan would pass away of cancer at Corcoran State Prison.
Oh, shoot. The biggest OG, Joe Morgan, and checked out. But nah, bro, I was gonna say, the Mexican Mafia, didn't they say that was the people who, killed, Money Saw Suede, too, when he was in jail, bro? If so, that's crazy, man.
1993, Joe Morgan would pass away of cancer at Corcoran State Prison.
Joe was
Even though he did horrible things, Joe Morgan is still considered a legend to this day. And after his passing, the Mexican Mafia had to somewhat change their course. They had truly done so much damage, and decades of chaos was finally enough. So to mitigate their power, the federal government moved their high-ranking members to prisons all over the country. As a result, San Quentin and the rest of California's prisons got much safer. And coincidentally, so did the streets of LA. In case you don't believe me, listen to this. In 1993, the city of LA had a whopping 1,300 homicides. And by 19...
Bro, 1,300? Bro. Nah, bro, we gotta do this math, bro. Ain't no way, bro. Bro, 1,300 divided by a year, bro. Bro, that's three murders every day.
The number got down to 372. The dramatic shift can be
They almost lost 1,000 kills.
1999, the number got down to 372. The dramatic shift can be attributed to the 3 strikes law and a whole bunch of gang indictments. And for the Mexican Mafia, theirs came in 1998. Dozens of members were swept off the streets, and East LA was better than ever before. That being said, the Mexican Mafia is still in the streets, just nowhere near as much as they used to.
Did a sweep for real.
The same can be said about nearly every Los Angeles gang. The government was cracking down hard, and a lot of members decided to get out of town. Naturally, during this process, they began setting up their gangs in brand new cities. For example, the Rolling 60s went to Georgia, the Bounty Hunters went to New York, and Grape Street went to Memphis. The Mexican Mafia found a new city as well, except theirs happened in a completely different way. We now head to the Lockhart Prison in Central Texas. In the late 80s, this was home to a dangerous man named Heriberto Huerta, also known as Herbie. While incarcerated, Herbie felt vulnerable and wanted to start a gang for protection. Essentially, he always admired the Mexican Mafia and wanted to bring it to Texas. So somehow from his prison cell, he got in contact with the national leaders and asked for permission to start his own. He explained that Mexican inmates in Texas needed protection, and expanding the Mexican Mafia was the perfect solution. Long story short, the California leaders agreed, and Herbie was off to the races. First, he naturally made himself the lifelong president of the Mafia. He then decided to call them the Texas Mexican Mafia, or Mexiconomy. He then drafted their rulebook as well, which is pretty similar to California.
Well, only with one major difference.
A Mexiconomy member in the streets is not the same as a member in prison, so the rank you earn in the streets means nothing if you ever go to prison. Herbie's idea was that this way members would never get complacent and would always want to prove themselves. Essentially,
I mean, I can see that, but they getting a rank? They feel like they getting a rank for nothing, probably.
Breed dangerous members who were always willing to put in work. And he wanted to breed a whole lot of them. Compared to California, the Texas Mexican Mafia was like community college. They'll literally accept anyone. And as you'll see, this comes with some serious consequences.
Rats, that's what it brings.
While Herbie recruited in prison, he wanted the street population to grow fast as well. And he wanted this to occur in his beloved hometown. Welcome to San Antonio, Texas. If you've never been here, which you don't need to, let me paint a picture. It's hot, it's flat, and it's boring. Like if you drive around the city, you'll lose your motivation for life and quickly want to leave. But if you stay, you should definitely be careful because this city is filled with gang members. You've got Southsiders, MS, Tango Blast, Texas Syndicate, and also plenty of cartels. This is why Herbie wanted TMM to grow fast and for members to be ruthless. Because in a city like San Antonio, stepping on the wrong toes will get you sent home. While years down the line, once they had enough members, Herbie wanted to take over the city. To do this, he implemented Joe Morgan's exact game plan. He had his San Antonio generals approach dealers on the streets and offer them a deal. Sell our product or we tax you 10%. Let you refuse our offer and a TMM member will show up at your doorstep.
I ain't gonna lie, bro. Like, the way that he using the bull tactics and making his way up the ranks, bro. That's why you low-key gotta pay attention to history, bro. It can teach you a lot of stuff, bro. A lot of tactics and tricks.
Let you refuse our offer and a TMM member will show up at your doorstep. However, for TMM, this process was not so simple. Texas is a very prideful place where people would rather die on their feet than live on their knees. So in 1994, when they started implementing the tax, a whole lot of dealers refused to pay. Eventually, the Texas Mexican Mafia needed to prove a point to San Antonio.
I was gonna say, it don't sound like they doing too good, bro, but let's see.
Or shall I say, they needed to instill fear in the streets. The task was put in the hands of a general named Robert Martinez Perez. Robert was a dangerous man, willing to do anything to benefit the Mafia. So once he got the call in August of 1997, he was ready to put in work. The first target that came to mind was a dealer named Rodolfo Vara, a man who had stopped paying the tax for over a year. Rodolfo had previously worked with the Mafia, but was not willing to pay a tax for life.
They let Bo get off for a whole year.
And this would come with a serious cost. On August 8th, 1997, 5 TMM members ran inside Rodolfo's house.
Shoot.
Sadly, Robert and his crew didn't spare anyone, making this the most violent encounter San Antonio had ever seen.
Dang, 5
Among those
people?
most anxious for answers are the families
was-
of the victims. Chris Tobias was 18 years old. He had plans to go to college. His parents were proud. Now they grieve.
He was hanging in the
He'd always
trap.
give us a hug before he left, and he sure did that night. It's just too bad there was the last hug that we ever got from him. I wish I could hold him one more time, at least one more time, and tell him again how much I love him.
Tears can't wash away this father's anguish. Roger and Rebecca Tobias come to their son's grave aching for
Yes, we
comfort.
did,
But the memories of August 8th are etched in stone.
The terrible incident brought major attention from the state government. So much so that TMM General Robert Perez was given the death penalty.
Ooh.
Investigators say the soldiers were on orders from their general, Robert Beaver Perez, and impose a so-called street tax on any operation there.
Oh, see, they know stuff like that. That means somebody told, bro. That ain't nothing but somebody telling, bro.
Street tax on any operation there.
The ones I saw seemed a little bit resigned, like they knew this would happen. Eventually, you're either going to get caught, you're going to be killed. It was just the lifestyle that they were in.
Unfortunately, though, the horrible incident instilled fear in San Antonio, increasing TMM's power. They started taking over blocks and membership grew to over 8,000 members. As you would expect with this many members, not everyone was vetted properly. That introduces us to a man named Ruben Reyes, also known as Menace. After years of being a street hitter,
Bro, this what I was saying, bro. They got 8,000 members, bro. You know how many members gonna end up telling?
Menace was promoted to General of the North Side of San Antonio. This meant he had the role of taxing dealers in his region and recruiting new members. Well, the year is 2012 and Menace is approached by a man named Julian Pesina. Julian is the owner of a tattoo shop called Notorious Inc., a place where many Mafia members get tatted. But not only does Pesina own the tattoo shop, but he also is a dealer on the side. He knows that as his side hustle grows, the TMM members will try to tax him. So to get ahead of the curve, he decides to call a meeting with Menace. He tells him what he does and that he's potentially interested in becoming a TMM member. As you know, strength in numbers is how they operate, so Menace decides to put him on. He then assigns him the role of providing protection for one of his guys. This would be Jerry Idrogo, a man responsible for collecting taxes. So while Jerry goes to collect, Julian has his back. This continues for over a year, and during this time, Julian gets Mexican Mafia tattoos. This is usually a normal thing, but Julian decides to post them all over social media. Now for regular members, this can be risky in case of an investigation, but for Julian, it's 1,000 times riskier. That's because on top of being a tattoo artist, Julian is also a police officer.
Bro, this is not, bro. What is going on, bro? These rapumentaries always be having like a crazy plot twist in them somewhere, bro. This is the plot twist, bro. He a tattoo artist, and he a police officer, bro. He living a triple life, bro.
That's because on top of being a tattoo artist, Julian is also a police officer. Yes, he happens to be an officer in the small city of Balcones Heights, located in the middle of North San Antonio. Obviously, this put Julian at a major risk. If Menace finds out, you're in trouble, and if the police find out, you're in trouble as well. Julian thought that he could manage the double life under the radar, but obviously it was just a matter of time. In September of 2013, one of Julian's buyers was arrested. Long story short, the guy becomes an informant, and you know where this story goes. The guy gives up Julian as his supplier, and once investigators find out who he is, they hand the case over to the FBI.
Oh my god.
The FBI decide to use the informant to set up Julian, so they have him text him to meet up and make a deal. He agrees over text and they're set to meet up. However, instead of going to his door, Julian leaves it in a flower pot a couple blocks away. He then texts him and says that he'll collect the money at a later time. Because of this smart maneuver, the FBI could not directly arrest him. Regardless, they were determined to take him down. So that's when they decide to set up hidden cameras around his tattoo shop. There they notice reputed Mexican Mafia members going in and out of.
Bro, I didn't even know they could do that, bro. Like, just put them around a shop.
Around his tattoo shop. There they notice reputed Mexican Mafia members going in and out of the shop. They're obviously skeptical, so they decide to go through his social media. That's when they discover all of his Mexican Mafia tattoos and they cannot believe it. Just based on this, they can easily build a case, but they're not satisfied. They want more evidence. So they decide to keep letting Julian do his thing while they watch from their cameras. Their plan is to get as much evidence as possible before they arrest him in June of 2014. But during the time before the planned arrest, Julian runs into problems with his own gang. May 1st, 2014. It's regular business for Julian and Jerry as they head to a man's house to collect his tax. So the duo walk in the house and instantly tensions in the air. The dealer, whose name is Vicky, is noticeably nervous, and so is Julian. So Julian steps out of the house to alleviate the tension. Once he leaves, Vicky asks Jerry a question. "Why did you bring a police officer to my house?" Jerry is beyond confused and says, "What? What are you talking about? He's not a cop, that's my carnal named Julian." Vicky responds by saying, "Is it Julian Piscina?" Jerry slowly responds, "Yes, that's his name." So Vicky instantly hops up and says, "Yes, he's a police officer and I can prove it to you." He then pulls out his phone, looks up Julian on Google and shows him his police profile. Jerry cannot believe it and he doesn't know what to do. Has Julian been—
Bro, I know his heart dropped, bro. Cause he's like, bro, what if he been ratting the whole time? What have he been doing, bro?
Me up this entire time? Well, Jerry collects his thoughts and walks back to the car without saying a word. He then drives Julian home without mentioning anything he learned from Vicky. After dropping him off, he instantly calls Menace and informs him of what he learned. Menace is shocked and tells him he'll get back to him in a couple days. 2 days later, May 3rd, 2014. Menace calls Jerry and simply says Julian's gotta go. He then says to lure him to a remote area where there's no witnesses. So Jerry says, "I got you," and hangs up the phone. He then calls up Julian and asks to pick him up because they need to talk. Julian somehow senses that something is up and he tells him that he's too busy to meet. He then hangs up the phone. So Jerry instantly calls up Menace and tells him he thinks that Julian knows what's up. Menace angrily responds, "Get it done by any means."
They got running in the shop with fullies.
So Jerry comes up with an alternative plan. He simply tells Julian that he'll meet him outside his shop after he closes up. He says that all he needs is a 5-minute conversation outside of the shop. Julian really has no choice but to agree to this, so he reluctantly does, and that's when Jerry puts his plan together. He calls on 2 recruits to get the job done, Alfredo Cardona and Jesse Santibanez. This mission will certify their position in the Texas Mexican Mafia. Now the plan is set and all they need to do is execute. The next day, May 4th, 2014. It's the top of the morning and Jerry orders the 2 recruits to go steal a car for the mission. He then tells them to hide out near the tattoo shop at 10:30 on the dot. The recruits spend the whole day trying to take a car, but they simply don't know how. So then they give up and simply decide to take their own personal car. Things are already off to a bad start. 10:30 p.m. Jerry arrives to the shop and pulls up right in front of the door. He then sits behind his tinted windows waiting for Julian to come outside. At 10:35, he walks outside holding his waistband. Jerry leaves his window up as he's expecting the two members to come out of the corner, but the members are nowhere to be found. Jerry notices Julian getting antsy and he decides to roll his window down. He then starts a fake pleasant conversation in order to get him off guard. This continues for 10 minutes and still no signs of the recruits. As it turns out, they're lost on the road and can't find the tattoo shop. Finally, at 10:50, they find it and they come out of the corner.
Got him, wow. Thought he was gonna make it.
The FBI watched this happen in real time. So as you would expect, they solved it in less than a day. The next afternoon, Jesse and Alfredo were raided and taken to jail. Jerry Drogo was also raided, but he was nowhere to be found. By the time of the raid, he was already in Ohio.
Oh!
So to get to
Dang, he got up out of there, bro. He went from Texas to Ohio that fast.
the FBI had his grandma call him to inform him that he's wanted and needs to turn himself in. So he turns himself in and instantly starts telling everything.
Oh my goodness.
Meanwhile, the two recruits stay solid and don't say a peep. Crazy how that works, huh? Well, the only person that Jerry spared from his snitching was Menace. He would not dare tell on a Mexican mafia general. Because of this, Menace was left out of this case. This didn't mean that Menace was completely in the clear. Due to recruiting a cop, he was no longer in good standing with the Texas Mexican Mafia. November 9th, 2014. Menace is at home sitting on the couch when he gets a knock on the door. He thinks it's the police, so he opens the door and puts his hands up. But instead, it's three fellow Mafia members. Somehow Menace survives, but he figures his days are numbered. And that's when he comes up with a crazy solution. He calls up San Antonio police and says that he needs to talk. He tells them to come to his house and to pick him up to go on a drive. When they arrive, he hands them a piece of paper with coordinates and says, "Take me there." He then grabs a shovel from his closet and hops in the back of the police car. When they arrive to the remote location, he walks to the exact spot with his shovel. He begins digging a hole and unveils 3 body bags. He then says, "This is what I had to do to join the Mexican Mafia." He puts his hands behind his back and is taken straight to jail. Why he did this? He either felt bad or he knew that his life was over in the streets anyways.
His conscience was eating him up, bro. Dang, bro.
Much of what is known about the Texas Mexican Mafia comes from successful investigations led by local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies. Each case provides a glimpse inside the dark and violent world of the gang and how the gang operates in the shadows.
They all be up like at least 2-3 heads, bro.
2 recent cases that are part of ongoing investigations highlight how the gang takes care of members who fall out of favor with leadership.
Used him for several hits and decided now this guy's got to go.
According to a federal indictment, Reyes said he was serving as the lieutenant of lieutenants in 2014 when he 3 high-ranking members in 3 separate hits on the same day.
They should know it's coming. A lot of times they are totally surprised because they don't know they did anything wrong. And sometimes it may be politics.
Months later, the tables turned on Reyes. A hit squad went to Reyes' apartment and opened fire when he opened the door. Reyes survived the attempted hit. Days later, he was telling all to SAPD homicide detectives, violating the gang's rule of not cooperating with police. But he's not the only one in trouble.
The people who botched that hit now are in big trouble too.
Here's how everything turned out.
Those new details are part of the government's plea deals offered to Cardona and Santibanez. They're both being offered 30-year sentences with 5 years of supervised release in exchange for guilty pleas. Jerry Drogo pled guilty to his role in the murder last year and is waiting to learn what his sentence will be. Meanwhile, Ruben Reyes pled guilty to several murders he committed for the gang, including Pacina's. A federal judge handed him 5 life sentences in December.
Believe it or not, the case...
Oh my gosh, bro, imagine hearing that. 5 life sentences, bro.
A federal judge handed him 5 life sentences in December.
Believe it or not, the case gets even deeper than you think. After all of this came out, Balcones police officers complained to the state. They claimed they had warned the police chief about Julian's double life and that he did nothing about it. If this is true, then San Antonio's corruption runs deep.
After spending the past 5 weeks on paid leave, the chief of the Balcones Heights Police Department was fired today by the city administrator. The reason? A lengthy internal investigation regarding a complaint filed against Chief Henry Dominguez by one of his officers. Tonight, the chief's attorney says he will appeal that decision and seek reinstatement.
And we had to come to a difficult decision, but I support our city administrator's decision to terminate the chief 100%.
Balcones Heights Mayor Suzanne De Leon standing by her city administrator's decision to terminate Police Chief Henry Dominguez. He had been sidelined since May 27th when Officer Kenneth Ortiz filed a complaint against Dominguez, alleging he and other officers had warned the chief that fellow officer Julian Pacina had questionable and gang-like tattoos and that no action was taken by the chief to investigate. In the termination letter, City Administrator Amy Buckert wrote, the chief informed city leaders that he was, quote, unaware of any concerns about Officer Pacina being gang-affiliated prior to his death.
See, and if them people really went and told him that, then they know he definitely crooked.
Investigation revealed that this statement was not true.
Hey, whatever the case may be, I'm never going to Balcones Heights, and I'm definitely not getting pulled over there. I'm also not going to Texas at all, because who voluntarily goes to Texas?
I would.
Not to mention that TMM is a very good reason not to go to San Antonio. Now that you know the situation in San Antonio, let's head back to California. Thankfully, these days you don't hear much about the Mafia in Cali. However, they're still active, just not to the extent they used to be. In case you guys want to learn more about the Mafia, check out Mundo's book. Wait, why is it $180? Okay, instead, if you want to learn the whole story, check out this podcast.
Dang, he made a book, but yeah, we're gonna clip that off right there, man. But yeah, bro, that's the story of the Mexican Mafia. I ain't gonna lie, bro. The Mexican niggas, bro, they savages, bro. No cap. Tell my hat, bro. They stand on business. But, yeah, man, if y'all enjoyed that, make sure to comment, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, man. Stay tuned for more. It's Butter. We catch y'all next one on Mouth Tissue.
Chains in these watches, boy, we real ice. Hands out the window, bam, 10 and a pair of Nikes. Bustin' balls, I'm in Cali every week with it. Brody, what I told you about.